I'm going to be reading The Demon That Follows from the subreddit Library of Shadows by dissociationreddit. Introductions to statistics is where this all began. One day, as I'm zoning out, staring at this girl I've been in love with forever. Maybe a bit creepy, but I couldn't help myself. I could never work up the courage to talk to her, so I just admired her from afar. That's when I first saw it. Some movement out of the window catches my eye, and I change focus. Across the grass, I see this thing that at first I think must be a malformed dog. It has no hair and black, leather-like skin, and it has the shape of a human, but is walking across the grass on all fours in a very unnatural way. Its hind legs raise up much higher than the rest of its body, while its front quarter hardly seems to lift at all. Its back feet look oddly human, but too elongated, giving it an odd, unnatural look. It seemed to be following some guy, keeping so close to him that I was shocked he didn't look back at this beast behind him. That's when it looks up toward me and locks eyes. From where I was sitting, its eyes almost seemed pure black. I swear it felt like it was peering straight into my soul. Like it could see the deepest parts of me. It slowly started to approach the window, one step at a time. As it got closer, I could see its front paws seemed oddly human. When I hear, "Mr. Matthews, if you'd please give your attention to me like the rest of your classmates so kindly have, maybe you won't fail this semester." I jumped at least an inch as I turned around to face the professor. He was right, though. I spent so much of class staring at Lena that I was hardly able to keep up on the course work. That night, as I lie in bed, I get the first chance to really sit down and think about whatever it was I saw today. I mean, it had to be an animal, right? Of some kind, right? It walked on all fours, but its feet seemed so human. And it saw me looking at it and started towards me. Why would an animal do that? And that guy didn't seem to notice anything. Right as I'm about to fall asleep, I'm spooked awake as I hear my closet door slowly open. I stare down the foot of my bed, about ready to turn on my phone's flashlight and inspect whatever's going on when I see something start to come out. Not on the floor like you'd expect, but on the ceiling. I saw those unnatural black leather hands start to come out of the closet. Then I see its face. It's unnaturally lit for how dark it was, and the lack of light in the room, but I could see everything. It had no nose, but instead two elongated holes similar to what you'd see on a decaying corpse. As it continued to come out, I could see its abdomen was unnaturally long, and the thing was way too skinny relative to its size, like someone who was starving. Then came out the feet, black, leathery skin wrapped so tightly around bone, you'd almost think it had no skin. So unnaturally long, they reminded me of werewolf feet, like from those old horror movies. But these feet were completely devoid of hair. It slowly made its way toward me, our eyes locked together. I was barely breathing, and I was sure my eyes had to be so unnaturally wide. With shock and horror, as it reached right above me, it turned its head completely upside down to where its chin was lined up with its back. Its neck started to stretch, and I could hear the cracking of bones as its neck stretched out to where its head was millimeters away from mine. Its breath stunk of rot. Its eyes were pure black voids. Its teeth were practically nubs, half the length of a normal person's, and were razor sharp. You can see me, it asks in a low, raspy voice, almost sounding like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It stretched out words in a weird way, like talking was hard for it. It repeated, "You can see me." Every word hitting me with the stench of rot. My eyes were so wide they hurt. I was no longer breathing at all. I had no clue what to say or do, so I closed my eyes and counted to 50 very slowly. When I opened them, it was still there. Now, angrily, it rasped, "You can see me." Frightened out of my mind, I instinctively whispered, "Yes." With that, it gave me the most horrifying smile imaginable. Its neck slowly pulled up and back to its body as I heard what sounded like more bones cracking. When its head was finally back in place, it slowly backed up to my closet, staring at me the whole way, and entered with the door closing on its own behind it. Needless to say, I didn't get a wink of sleep that night. However, emboldened by the daylight around 7 a.m., I got up and checked out my closet with a bat in hand. Nothing. And nothing looked out of place either. I was sure it hadn't left the closet, as my eyes were locked on it all night. Now hoping it had all been some nightmare or trick of my mind, I got ready for class. I sat in class looking out and zoning, looking at Linda again. Something out of my window caught my attention. I saw it again. It was slowly marching its way across the school grounds. My stomach dropped in horror as it slowly made its way in the open window. One black, leathery hand inside, then the other. Then it did something very odd. Instead of pulling its torso in, its arms retracted like the neck had last night, which slowly pulled the torso in. I watched in horror as it walked up to the ceiling until it was crouched right above me. I stared straight ahead, now hoping to God it would just go away. I heard the sounds of bones cracking again and knew what was to come. Soon, the top of its head, then eyes, came into my view. Once its head was level with me, it turned it around again. So instead of its eyes being even with my mouth, its mouth was. And its eyes peered straight into mine again, giving that feeling of looking into my soul. It looked over at Lena, then back at me. You love her, don't you? I looked around as it finished. No one else seemed to hear or see the thing but me. I looked back at it, and angrily it says again, you love her. I gulped and gave out the tiniest yes, so low I wasn't even sure if I had said it. It smiled that rotten, disgusting smile again. Yes. It smiled very low, even for it. It looked over at Linda, very excited. Its head retracted back to its body, and I watched it as it slowly made its way above her and stopped. Its head slowly, bones cracking, descended down where it was level with her, and it turned its head around to peer into her eyes. It seemed to be completely oblivious to anything going on. After staring into her eyes for a good minute, its head rescinded again and made its way back to me, more cracking. Then its eyes peered into mine. She doesn't love you. It rasped very angrily, like she had committed some offense against humanity. I'll make her love you. And with that, its head rescinded faster than I had ever seen it do before. And it was across the ceiling and out the window before I could even process it. I didn't see the thing for the rest of the day, and by bedtime, I was hoping I had just imagined it all. I knew after everything, I wouldn't be able to sleep through the night, so I got to bed with the help of some over-the-counter sleeping aids. The next day, any hope of it being all imagined disappeared. It was all around school. Lena had been in a car accident, had broken all her legs. My stomach dropped. That thing seemed so angry at her, but wanted to make her love me. How would hurting her succeed in that goal? In Intro to Statistics, I stared at the window again, this time, not because I had been staring at the absent Lena, but because I had a feeling it'd return, and my feeling turned out to be right. I watched it make its way across the grounds again, into the class, and above my head I heard the cracking of bones. As I saw its head turn and come into view, I made her hurt. I will make her hurt, it rasped. No, I exclaimed, which caused the whole class to look over at me. Mr. Matthews, would you like to share with the class what's so interesting? The professor asked. I shook my head. As he went back to talking, I noticed it was looking very angrily at the professor. I will make him hurt, It rasped before quickly making its way across the ceiling to right above the professor. Its arms extended down with the usual cracking of bone. Then it put one hand on each of the sides of his head, and then... snap! The professor's head turned 180 degrees. We all saw his blank eyes as he fell to the floor. Dead.